Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Wine. Welcome back to art class. Today we will be introducing a new unit on collage. So let's get started. Our learning target today says I will create a collage inspired by the Japanese idea of Notan. And our question is, how can I create balance in a collage? So remember, when we're talking about the vocabulary word balance, we're talking about an equal arrangement of shapes. It doesn't have to be exactly equal, but we don't want to have 10 shapes on one side and one shape on another side because that would not be balanced. I also want to point out that for this project, we will be studying a design idea, not an artist. Notan is not the name of a Japanese artist. It is the name of a concept, a design idea developed by the Japanese culture. So let's take a look at this artwork. When you look at this artwork, how would you describe it using the elements of art? Look at this artwork and think about what kind of lines do you see? What kind of shapes do you see? What kind of colors? And what kind of values? Those are the things that we will be discussing. When I look at this artwork, I see geometric shapes that I can name, like squares, triangles, diamonds, circles, and semicircles. I notice that there are no colors, just black and white, and that black is the darkest value there is, and white is the lightest value there is. When I look at the arrangement of these shapes, I see that they are perfectly balanced symmetrically, meaning if I divide them in half with a vertical line, the design looks exactly the same on the left and the right. It is also balanced symmetrically top and bottom. If I divide it in half horizontally, the top design looks the exact same as the bottom design. Let's learn about this exciting kind of art and look at more examples. So as I said, this is a Japanese idea. Japan is a country made up of a group of islands in East Asia. So this is what the islands of Japan look like on a map. To the left, you see you have China, Russia, North Korea, South Korea, and then you have this group of islands located off the coast. Then this is the Pacific Ocean. If I kept going across the ocean, eventually I would run into the islands of Hawaii, which are part of the United States. And if I kept going, eventually I would run into the west coast of the United States, California, and then way across our country until you got to New York. So if you're not sure where it is, look it up on a map of the world. The idea of Notan involves using light and dark shapes. So we're talking about the element of value. And these shapes are arranged to have an equal balance. Again, it could be that they are balanced exactly symmetrically. This is another example that looks the same. If I divide it in half horizontally, it's the same on the top and the bottom. And if I divide it in half vertically, it's the same on the right and the left. Do you have any ideas about how the artist made all of these shapes look exactly the same? Are these geometric shapes? These are organic shapes. Remember, organic shapes are those weird wiggly shapes that do not have a name. So when we're talking about Notan, we're talking about two different kinds of shapes or two different kinds of spaces. The first kind and the most obvious is the positive space. In the Western culture, our culture, positive space is usually the most important subject in an artwork. If I set up the model of these mannequins and I asked you to draw them, most of you would probably look at the shape of the mannequins. You'd look at the shape of the head and draw the head. Then you'd look at the shape of the body and draw the body. Then the arm, and so on and so on. So positive space is the shape of the object or the objects. But negative space is the exact opposite. Negative space is the space around the object. Negative space is usually what we think of as the background space. So if you were looking at the negative space of these objects and I asked you to draw them, instead of looking at the head, you would look at the shape between the heads and you would try to draw that. Instead of looking at just the arms, you would look at this little triangle shape created where the arms crisscross, and you would draw that little triangle shape. Instead of just looking at the two bodies, you would look at this big shape between the two bodies, and you might look at how far apart these two legs are and how far apart these two bodies are. Looking at those empty spaces is looking at the negative shapes. So in Notan, it helps the artist because you're looking at how both of these spaces, the positive space and the negative space, interacts. And the goal is to create balanced designs. Even if the shapes do not look exactly the same, you want the black shapes to be about the same as the white shapes. So it really helps when you're looking at the size of the black shape compared to the white shape, and you're comparing that to how it looks all the way around. Again, look at this example. Do you see geometric shapes or organic shapes? And do the black spaces look about equal in arrangement to the white spaces? The light and the dark areas are equally important in an interesting, balanced Notan design. It doesn't even have to be the same number of shapes. If I have two really large fat shapes on one side, I might need several smaller, thinner shapes on the other side. How would you compare and contrast these two Notan collages? Again, look at the kinds of lines and the kinds of shapes that you see. In the example on the left, I see designs that are created with straight lines and zigzag lines. Those have a very geometric look to them. The design on the right is created more with curved lines and organic shapes. The shapes almost remind me of leaves. And again, how would you compare these two designs? Sometimes Notan designs can be created starting with an overall square shape, and sometimes Notan designs can be started with an overall diamond shape. To create the diamond, you start with the square and just turn it up on its point. Also, look at these designs because these are a little more complicated than some of the other ones that we've looked at. How do you think the triangles in this collage were created? Notice how this artwork has a dark outside shape, then a lighter inside shape, followed by a dark shape and a light shape. Those are some challenges that I will give you if you feel like you need a challenge for this project. So if you continue on to the next video, you will see directions on how to create your own practice Notan collage. We will be starting with one half-size sheet of paper and one quarter size or a fourth size sheet of paper in colors that contrast. You will get to choose whether you create a geometric shape or an organic shape for your practice collage. And I will show you how to cut the shape and then flip or turn the shape so that your design is perfectly balanced. I will also give you the challenge moves if you feel like you need to give yourself a challenge for this project. If you are working at home and you want an extra challenge, you could even try starting with a shape that is not a square. Once you learn the technique, you can come back to this presentation and see how you think you could create Notan designs starting with different shapes, such as circles, hearts, triangles, a teardrop shape, or any other shape. I can't wait to see your practice collages this week. Have a wonderful week and keep on creating.